Wouldn't it be nice if my little avatar here could just suddenly burst out of the screen and walk up to the real YouTube offices and demand, I don't know, 60 million extra subscribers? That'd be nice. Hello everybody, welcome back to Access Blockbusters and welcome to a look back at the 2022 Disney Plus MCU show, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Before we get any further, make sure to subscribe to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, give this video a like, and let me know in the comments down below what you think about She-Hulk. Is it your least favorite MCU show? Is it your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, these rewatch videos are broken up into 3 parts. The first part is me talking about what the expectations were behind the show, what my personal expectations were, what the general consensus amongst fans were when the show first came out, what I thought about the show when it first came out. Then the second part is going to be a sort of play-by-play, though not really, but just me going through the show again, talking about what I liked, what I didn't like. And then the third part will be whether or not my thoughts have changed since watching the show for the first time. And this is the second time I've seen the show, so now I've seen it through 2 times. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's talk about She-Hulk Attorney at Law. So not gonna lie, this was probably the Disney Plus project, or just even in general, the MCU Phase 4 project that I was least excited about before it came out. Because even projects with relative obscurity like Ms. Marvel and like Moon Knight had fantastic trailers. I mean, the trailer for Moon Knight was just phenomenal. The way that they used the music, the way that they cut in between Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, and then I think the trailer for Ms. Marvel was very charming. So 2 characters I knew almost nothing about. Really, the trailers convinced me that I should be at least a little bit excited, and it turns out I enjoyed Moon Knight somewhat, as you can see by the video, where I took a look back at that show, and I really did enjoy Ms. Marvel quite a bit, other than maybe a couple episodes. So the trailers did a lot for me. However, the trailers for She-Hulk Attorney at Law frankly did nothing. And I say that as someone who frankly loves a lot of the Marvel trailers. I think that Marvel is one of the best in the business at making good trailers for their movies. I mean, you can look at the entire marketing campaign for Endgame. It's just phenomenal how little they revealed in that. But the trailers for She-Hulk really gave me little reason to be excited. And I knew that She-Hulk would be a little bit of a different show because it would be a legal comedy, it would be a legal procedural, kind of like Ally McBeal. And then I also knew that the character of She-Hulk in the comics, though I hadn't read any, was very meta, very fourth wall breaking, as we saw in the show. And so I kind of had the idea that, yeah, this was going to be a little bit different. But again, just nothing really stood out to me about the trailers. And the CGI in the trailers, the design of the character looked a little questionable to me. Like, the movements in the face looked a little plasticky, but I thought, okay, let's give it a shot. And so just like with any project, movie, TV show, I decided let's just put the expectations at the door and go watch the show for what it is. Now, She-Hulk is interesting because upon the first watch, and you're seeing these episodes week by week, I think that the general level of the audience of the show sort of started out pretty high because I think most everybody watched the first couple episodes and went, this is actually pretty good. And then slowly from there, I think the interest and the excitement kind of dwindled as each episode went on. And I would say that pretty much tracks with my level of excitement for the show. I think that as the season went on, my just general excitement to watch a new episode every week dwindled, and I think it's because the concepts got a little bit sillier each time out. And frankly, while I'm not used to watching sitcoms week by week. I'm used to binging them, but I understand that that was the old model with cable television of you watch an episode a week of 22 minutes of The Office or Friends or Parks and Rec or Seinfeld. I understand that. Doing that with a show like She-Hulk, though, in the modern day, where each episode just kind of feels inconsequential and you're only getting 9 of them. You're not even getting 24 episode seasons anymore. It just didn't work well with the model. So that if an episode like, I think it was episode 5 or 6 with the wedding episode, I think it was episode 6. I mean, that episode probably one of the worst ones in the season where I don't think much of anything really happened in there. And you just kind of open the Disney Plus app on Wednesday and then watch a 25-minute episode, not including credits. And then you're just kind of like, yeah, that was interesting with some cringy moments in there and maybe some laughs. So that was pretty much She-Hulk. And I mean, obviously we'll talk about the ending more, but the ending was crazy. The ending was crazy. We'll talk about that though later on. And so She-Hulk has kind of just lived at the bottom of my MCU rankings, but not because I didn't like Tatiana Maslany. I think just like with every single MCU project, regardless of how much I like it, how much I don't like it, their casting is spot on. Tatiana Maslany, fantastic choice for She-Hulk, for Jennifer Walters. Love her as a character. But again, it just was so inconsistent and so wildly varying in quality, and it just kind of lived towards the bottom. So I was interested to see what would change upon the rewatch. I frankly was not looking forward to this rewatch as much as other projects, but I, again, was just willing to give it another shot. So let's talk about the second time watching She-Hulk. So first of all, the show opens with a fourth wall break. And I will say that that's one of the aspects of the show that does work for me, because it's not overdone, other than obviously that big thing at the end. But when it's just interspersed between little moments within the episodes, I think it's actually kind of fun. It's kind of cute. And I really do enjoy the Bruce-Jen dynamic that we get established at the beginning of the show. The beginning of the first episode is very exposition heavy, and I mean, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting, talking about how she's getting her powers and how Bruce was able to merge Bruce Banner and Hulk into the Smart Hulk and all that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit talky and a little bit clunky, for a lack of a better word. And the origin was a bit rushed. I mean, Hulk's blood goes into her blood, and then that's it. She turns into She-Hulk. I mean, as far as superhero origins go, I mean, I've seen Jamie Foxx's Elektra get shocked by electric eels, and I've seen crazier things in superhero movies and shows, so it's not the most implausible thing, but still a little bit hard to believe in, but that's okay. We're moving on with the show. And then we get to see the She-Hulk CGI, and again, I will say, and I'm probably only going to say it once, I'm going to try to keep it at a minimum, but the CGI throughout the show doesn't look great. I think that the character model is just sort of rubbery and plasticky. It just feels like a kind of CGI model walking around instead of an actual person. And the face, I don't know what it is, guys. Honestly, I just don't know what it is, but the face just, it screams animated, I don't know, video game character or animated character to me. And I'm not saying they didn't do the best that they could. I'm positive they did the best they could. But you'll see throughout the show, if you rewatch it, that they try their absolute best to transform Jen from Jen to She-Hulk and vice versa off camera, which obviously they make fun of in the Kevin segment in the episode 9 finale. But just to be fair to everybody, I mean, look at this picture from The Incredible Hulk. This is the first appearance of the Hulk in the MCU. And I know it's 2008, but I just comparing them making the model for the first time of the Hulk in the MCU and then making the model of She-Hulk for the first time in the MCU, the first Incredible Hulk CGI was just not good. I mean, I get that this is 20 years later, so, you know, maybe we could have expected a little bit better, but I think that as time goes on, if Jennifer Walters returns to the MCU, that they will improve on this for sure. And then from there, it's just the first episode is her becoming She-Hulk. It's, you know, it's entertaining. I don't think I laughed out loud much during the entirety of this rewatch, but I found that most of the episodes, including episode 1, was quite entertaining. The one thing I will say that is pervasive throughout this show, and this is a completely subjective thing, so I understand, but this show relies heavily on pop music, and I think this is just my personal taste, so this might hit other people very differently. Maybe you guys love the music in She-Hulk, but I honestly, the music choice that they pick in She-Hulk, I can't stand. I don't know why. Every time they play music in She-Hulk, it just doesn't work for me. And to be fair, like in James Gunn's, I think Guardians 2 or maybe one of the Guardians films, I don't love the music choices either for no apparent reason other than just my own subjective music taste. So that's something that, you know, when they bring in the music, it bothers me a little bit. And we end episode 1 with Random Titania. So yeah, there's that. I'm going to go through the rest of the episodes much quicker now because I think that the beginning episode had a lot of heavy lifting. I think the last episode has a lot to talk about, but I mean, episodes 2 and 3, I think are actually quite good. When you're dealing with Abomination, I think that whole legal aspect of trying to prove that Abomination was taken out of his cell against his will by Wong. I mean, first of all, that's great MCU setup there because that is what a lot of other shows and movies in the MCU had been lacking in Phase 4. This show actually has pretty good cohesion with different elements of the MCU, which I had been missing, so that was good to see. The B-plot between episodes 2 and 3, or maybe it was episode 3 with Dennis, I think is kind of amusing, but I mean, again, you know, sitcoms have their B-plots, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, so it's fine. And if you don't even remember who Dennis is, don't even worry about it. And again, I mean, episodes 2 and 3, much like episode 1, has very entertaining moments and some really good bits of legal, I guess not drama, but, you know, legal elements to it, which I really like. And each episode also has something a little bit cringy about it as well. Like, for example, Emil Blonsky's Soulmates, I think was not funny at all. I think over the next couple episodes, we get the Wong Madison episode. Again, a little cringy for my taste, but it was, you know, it wasn't nearly as bad as I remember. There's a subplot with an elf, I think, from New Asgard, which is kind of amusing. There's a subplot with Luke Jacobs, is that his name? The clothes maker for superheroes. That's, you know, that's there. It's interesting, I guess. One of the things, though, within these episodes that's, I think, really underrated about the show, and it's something that the MCU does quite well, as seen with Ms. Marvel, is the family. I think that especially the dad, She-Hulk's dad, is, I think, a really fun character. I really like him. So he provides a little bit of, I don't know, it's not like his acting is super grounded or anything like that, but it just kind of grounds the show in the fact that he's just being sort of a stereotypical dad. And I think that actually, it works in this crazy world of She-Hulks and elves and Mr. Immortals and all that kind of stuff. Episodes 6 and 7 are really not my favorite episodes at all. The wedding episode just really not great. A lot of cringy moments, and then obviously the retreat episode, just a lot of cringy moments as well. And I think especially in episode 7, just the costumes on these C tier level superhero characters, which I get that that's the point, they're supposed to look cringy, but I mean, I think one of the things that this show does that I'm not a big fan of is that it normalizes superheroes so much that they just feel like every other person's a superhero. And I actually, that's one of the things about this show that I really don't like. Because when Captain America walks around, it's like, oh yeah, it's another superhero, it's just another guy. And I mean, I don't want that to be the case when I see Sam Wilson again, just be like, you're just another superhero. Or Bucky Barnes, I don't want to see that, with these guys. So yeah, it's something just to, to watch out for, I guess, if they do a season 2. Also, what's stirring up though in these episodes is this, I think, what is supposed to be the main brunt of the show, which is the plot of the intelligentsia hacking into her phone and posting, revealing, and compromising pictures and videos of Jen. And we will definitely get to that in the finale. But I will say that I don't think this plot was really set up as well as it could have been. But again, we'll get to that in the finale. For now, let's talk about episode 8 really quickly with Daredevil. I think that this version of Daredevil feels very MCU-ified, if that makes sense. But I don't think that's a bad thing, actually. I love Charlie Cox's Daredevil. I love all 3 seasons of Daredevil. And I think that his inclusion in the MCU, I mean, for better or for worse, he couldn't just be that same gritty character that he was in the Netflix shows, especially not when he's a part of She-Hulk. That being said, I think that what they did with the character, the little bits of humor, but also the grounded fighting style, and I think actually his chemistry with Jen is amazing. I hope that they stay together for a long time, because I think that is one of the things that worked really well. I hope She-Hulk shows up in Daredevil Born Again, actually. That would be really fun. But let's talk about the finale. So the finale basically revolves around this idea that the intelligentsia, which is sort of I guess like a 4chan equivalent, or just, a bunch of radical conspiracy theorists kind of revealing information about She-Hulk and trying to take her down. And I think that actually that is such an interesting angle to take, to have them, like the radical conspiracy theorists who want to take She-Hulk down, them being the villains of the show. And spearheaded by whoever. It could have been Todd, it could have been whoever. I think that that's great. And I think that the show is right to call out the fact that having Todd become Hulk King and injecting himself with She-Hulk's blood is ridiculous. So the show is right to call itself out on that. That being said, while I think that the whole fourth wall break with Kevin is clever, and I think honestly is a really smart finale for a completely different show. Honestly, for a She-Hulk season 2, if they decided to go there, if that whole show was, that meta and that was the finale, I'd be like, yeah, on board. But for this show, I don't think anything was there to really suggest that this could have been the finale, honestly. And what it comes off as being is sort of a lazy cop-out to writing an actual good ending, because I know that after she changes the quote-unquote bad ending of the show when talking to Kevin, she comes back and sort of wraps everything up very quickly, like, they arrest Todd. But I think that would have been more impactful to have just seen it play out like a normal narrative, to subvert our expectations by saying, okay, you think that there's going to be this big fight and everything like that, but instead it's really She-Hulk in court taking down Todd and all that kind of stuff, like taking down the intelligentsia through the legal means and then also through She-Hulk, which is sort of the point of the show at the very end. I think that would have been so much more impactful versus just watching everything going on with Kevin and then seeing the results of everything that happened off screen, I think that makes a lot more sense for a show like this. So in the end, it just feels lazy, honestly. I mean, it's clever. The writing in this episode is so much smarter than anything else that they wrote in the show before, honestly. Like, it's so funny and clever, the entire segment with Kevin. But I think it's just masking the fact that they didn't actually write an ending to this show. And I think that's disappointing because the show had potential. The idea, again, of having the intelligentsia be the villains of the show is interesting. And I actually quite like that concept. But, I was left a little disappointed at the end because that's not what they did. Now, all of that being said, as we talk about how my thoughts have changed from the first time I've seen this show, I like I said, it lingered at the bottom of my MCU rankings just because I frankly didn't know what to do with it. And every time I thought about it, I thought about all the cringy moments in each episode. And for the record, almost every single episode has very cringy moments. Even the Daredevil episode, Leapfrog is a cringy, terrible villain for that episode. But this show is actually quite entertaining for the most part. The legal elements, while not focused on as much as I would like, are very interesting and very compelling. The side characters they bring in, Wong, Abomination, Daredevil, Hulk, very, very interesting, other than, Hulk's son, which is crazy. I don't know why they did that. And for the most part, I can see the potential for a season 2, because actually, I enjoyed pretty much every episode except for maybe 6 and 7 to a certain extent. And I think, obviously, like I said before, Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters is the absolute highlight of this show. And if they bring her back in any capacity, great. If they can improve the CGI a little bit, great. If they can write every episode and tighten it up a little bit and make it, have one consistent storyline, because I think they're capable of writing very smart storylines. There are very smart concepts in this show. I think that just were not uniform and streamlined. I think that there is great potential to see her return in the MCU in her own show or in other movies and Disney Plus shows as well. So very much looking forward to that. And I'm very happy to say that I really enjoyed She-Hulk this time around, much more than I did the first time. What do you guys think of She-Hulk Attorney at Law? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel if you want to see more content like this. Look forward to just a few more Phase 4 rewatches before we get into some rankings and tier lists, and I will see you guys in the next one.